All right, so continuing where we left off yesterday with culture, first things first, I apologize for what you're looking at. It is going to be a confusing mess. Um, Fortunately, it is, it's a slide. You can pause it and write it all down, but there's a reason for this. For 5 years now, I've tried to figure out a way to actually explain this slide in a way that's, well, good. And so I just did a little research yesterday and tried to come up with examples that could help each of these parts of a culture make more sense by giving them examples. So I also experimented a little bit with my laptop and realized that if I fold it over, I can write on it like a tablet. I'll practice my penmanship later. So let's just, by way of review, yesterday we stopped our lecture discussing two different types of culture, material and non-material culture. Non-material culture being, values, beliefs, behaviors, and what are the norms for a particular group. And remember, they can all be scalable. This next slide looks at sort of the cultural evolution or mushrooming of cultural traits, beginning with just that cultural trait, which is the attribute of a culture. It is a single attribute, it's one part of a culture. It is not something that only one culture possesses, it can be in different parts. It is something that is shared that allows one part of a culture to be shared by another. That's the best example I could think of for cultural traits. That's what's there on the screen. That's actually what it says. Um, so that's a trait. Then you move from traits to the next larger stage, which is a complex. And again, this is a combination of different traits in a specific way, common values, and this also deals with both material and non-material cultures, common values, beliefs, behaviors, and artifacts that make one place distinct. If you look at my fancy handwriting down here, if it'll work. Oops, let's see. That's just too funny. All right. Do it this way. There we go. In red here, no, that's not what I want. It's a group of interrelated traits that are dominated by one. So there's one trait that tends to stand out amongst all the others. That's what this is. Sorry. Okay, so that's what this is. A complex, it's a group of interrelated traits, but there's one that sort of ties them all together. And then the example I chose here for a complex is nationalism, because lots of different parts of a culture, of a country's culture, go into this idea of nationalism. If you take a minute and think about it, you can think about what those would be, and not just in America. That's overly simplistic. The next one we are looking at is make it a little larger here. Is the cultural system, and this is a group of interconnected complexes. So remember, a complex are all those interrelated things that I scrolled over there. And these interrelated complexes truly define who a region is. Okay, so they are cultural ties and they are cultural manifestations, whether they be beliefs or norms that truly bring one group together and allow them to develop the idea that they are separate from another, that even though they may occupy the same space, they are separate from other parts. And then the example I chose for that could help it make the most sense would be the two very distinct cultures that led to the Civil War. Both part of the same country, yet they both saw themselves as separate entities. And there are lots of other examples that you could think of at the state, all the way down to the local level. When you think of how Sanderson's culture is not Millbrook's culture, or how band culture is not lacrosse culture, all those things. Same occupying space, but definitely two distinct groups. And let's just hope there's no band lacrosse Civil War. The next cultural trait we're going to look, or the cultural idea we're going to look at, is the idea of a culture region. And again, the system, the culture system that you see prior is going to lead to the idea of region and regionality, of being a distinct place. Again, even though it's within another group. And the examples I chose for those are a neighborhood like Little Italy or Chinatown or Hell's Kitchen, which is the Irish section, or anywhere where within the confines of a particular culture, you'll find an enclave of another culture. But that's a region. And then the last one is a realm. And this is the largest geographic area. It's, for in simplistic world history terms, it's a kingdom. It could be a country. A country or a state, as we'll get to in the next unit, is the best way to look at it. And again, these regions are large. They have a cultural realm can have multiple cultures in it, but there's one thing that ties them together, whether it be a language or a religion, or perhaps even no, we'll leave it at that. A language. I'm sure there are others. I was going to say something, but that wouldn't be the right thing to say. So I won't. So again, I apologize for this slide. It's just trying to explain all these one after the other is difficult, and I hope that these examples, when you have an opportunity to go look at them and then decipher them and take the time to write them down, will make more sense. If they don't, send me a question and I'll have an answer for you on Friday. All right, now let's see how this works. Here we go. Now I'll move me back to here, and here we go. All right, so again, there's what I just explained to you. Now, and again, a way to put this into practice is we could look at what these different traits, complexes, and things are for your community. But in the interest of time, and because we're not there, we won't worry about that right now. All right, now on to more traditional notes. Where does culture come from, or from whence does culture originate? Again, it's organic. Literally, it happens over time. It's because a group of people decided that they could grow crops and they hang out together and they begin to develop certain ways and they see they have certain things in common and they say, hey, we like that. Let's just make that part of who we are. So they do. Excuse me. Hey, because of Corona, I'm down to one bottle a day. Now, so a cultural hearth. A hearth is a hearth. That's a term we've used before. It is where something originates. That's a hearth. So a cultural hearth is nothing more than where a culture is born. And that's what it says. Where that trait first begins, where the first little seed of what it meant to be Irish, Iranian, English, where it is sown, that idea. Going back to world history, these show you where the early civilizations are, and I bet if I ask you, you could name them. I bet you know what that one is, and I bet you know where the two in South America are. Or wait, let's try it this way. Probably know where that one is, and that one is, and then that would be a trickier one, the one in West Africa, but maybe someone knows that one. And then this one here, we know that's Egypt, and there's Mesopotamia, and there's the Indus. And here is the Shang, or the early Chinese along the Yangtze River. And okay, let's just go back for the sake of argument. There are our Incas, there are our Aztecs. If you were to go into Central America, you would find anybody? Okay, all right. Okay, so those are the some of the earliest hearths, not the only ones, but they're the ones that we have found stuff. They're the ones that historians and anthropologists and sociologists seem to think are the most important. Now, it is important to note that in the beginning, environmental determinism was the key. All of the civilizations in this part of the world are different than these because the ones over here are river civilizations, and these are not river civilizations. Not. river civilizations. The Andes Mountains here are not a place for growing things. And here in the middle of Mexico, not a lot of, I mean, there are lakes and they made their own land, but not a river civilization, whereas the rest of these all were. So geography dictated what happened. Geography dictated um, how things were developed because water was essential back then, and we all know why. So our next concept is independent inventions. So to discuss that, let's go back for a second. All of these places develop at different times, some of them closer together than others. But the people in China were not talking to the people in India, and they surely weren't talking to the people in the Americas, and vice versa. So all the development and all of the creativity and all the advancements that were taking place during this time period were taking place independent of other places, hence independent invention. It's the idea that the wheel isn't just in one place in the world, or it's the fact that not just Mesopotamia learned how to farm, or construction, or anything like that. Technological advancement, the idea of monotheism or of religion in general, comes about independently in various parts of the world. So that's what independent invention is. And again, it's my man with the hat. The idea that traits develop independently of one another in different places without any contact or interaction with anybody else. That's what this is about. Mankind was able to do this without social media. Marriage is an example of independent invention. There you go. By the way, to get married, all you really need is $50 and a blood test, because marriage is a contract. The ceremony evolved for the ceremony is cultural. A wedding is a legally binding contract, but the ceremonial part and what it means to be married and the concept of husband and wife and betrothal is the cultural development. All right. By the way, marriage is pretty cool. So, why does it occur? Why does independent invention occur? That's an excellent question. And if we were face to face, I would get excellent answers. But just think about it. You have to survive. You have to eat. You have to develop. People are going to think of things to help them survive, whether they talk to their neighbor or not. They're going to figure out some way for that crop to grow, to keep that animal away, to keep their kids safe. So things are going to happen because necessity warrants it. All right. Cultural diffusion, a term we know, a term we love, a term that America could not exist without. Think of all the food you eat. Think about it. How much of that is American without any influence from any other country, any other culture? I think the chocolate chip cookie is American. The cheeseburger is not American. French fries aren't American. The potato chip might be. Hamburger's not American. The hot dog's not American. Fried chicken. I don't even think fried chicken. Someone said that last semester. I don't even think fried chicken is American. So what? It all tastes good. It's the spread of an idea from one hearth to another. And we know all the reasons why. We know all the migratory reasons why and how ideas from one place go to someone else. Conquest, relocation, push and pull factors. It doesn't matter how they get to where they're going. What matters is they do. And I am truly, truly, truly grateful that Italians came to America, and Indians, and Mexicans, and Spaniards, and Afghanis, because man, who doesn't love a kebab? So, I mean, think about kindergarten is German. Our language is an amalgam of how many countries in the world? America is a byproduct of cultural diffusion. So, and we're not the only country, by the way. This map here shows you where the major religions diffused and when they diffused and how they diffused. And we'll talk more about religions next week. Christianity is obviously the most expansive one because of colonization and exploration with the Spanish first, well, the Portuguese first, but the Spanish trying to make the world nice and Catholic here, and then not so much, and the Spanish were much more missionary than the Christians. I mean, than the Christians, than the Protestants, Catholics. The Spanish were trying to make everybody nice and Catholic. Philip II tried to create the model Catholic kingdom. All this stuff down here, England here, and England and the Dutch here, and England here, and well, there's the French. But they just brought it with them. There wasn't, I mean, yes, priests went, and yes, the gospel went with them, but the idea of conversion and trying to do that was not so much there. The Muslims did during their reign, the Abbasid, the Sassanid, the Umayyad, those dynasties, and then later the Ottoman Turks spread Islam. Buddhism is unique. Buddhism is unique because it's the only major religion that is not the dominant religion in its hearth. Its hearth is India, and the Hindus effectively drove them out. So Buddhism is not the dominant religion in India. All right, cool. I'm digging my stylus. Okay. So now, for review, there are 4 types of diffusion. Do you remember them? Remember the one that fails and then comes back? The one that starts here and ends up somewhere else? The one where the king says do this and everybody else says okay. And then the one where, well, check this shirt out. This shirt is hype. So everybody goes and buys it. Those are the 4 hints for the 4 types of diffusions. I'm sure you know what they are. If not, now, how do we adapt to culture? Well, one of 2 ways. We either do or we don't. You can either acculturate or you can assimilate. And they're different. They're subtly different. Too bad I can't read. I'd love to do it without glasses. But they are different. But these are the 2 ways you can adapt to a culture. Either a culture coming to your neighborhood, your town, your country, or you, because of work or parents or school, going somewhere else and having to embrace the culture of where you're going. Acculturation is the process of those people of the less dominant culture adopting some of the traits of the dominant culture, but they're still in their core who they are. They don't give up their culture. They don't. They just don't. They keep it. They speak the language. They keep the customs. They do the holidays, the dress, the food, everything. They send their kids to schools if they happen to have those schools in the neighborhood, while at the same time living in America, learning English, learning how the driving on the other side of the road, perhaps, things of that sort. Eating really sweet food. I heard that a lot from our international students. When you assimilate, you just go all in. I want to be American, and you go all in with the cowboy hat and everything else, and your culture takes a back seat, and you almost and I guess you almost throw it away. Again, I don't know. This is my culture. This is where I'm from. So I can only give you sort of an academic, loose answer. Those of you who have parents who immigrated to America, they could probably tell you what it was like, and it would be great if you would interview them and ask them what it was like and what they went through, and do they feel they've acculturated enough? Do they feel maybe they've lost too much of their culture and wish you could have more of it in your life? I don't know. I'd love to hear what your parents say or your grandparents or whomever say about that. That would be really, really interesting. Does assimilation affect only those who would choose to assimilate? In other words, is it one-way traffic? What do you think? What are your thoughts? Put them below. When I post it, I just did a John Green. When I post this on YouTube, any thoughts, any questions, any comments, put them in there. And what I'm going to try to do is have your answers, because that would be a good teacher thing to do. But if you have more conceptual questions, I may try and film an actual answer and post them on Fridays, since Fridays are office hours and extended office hours anyway. And they could probably help with review toward the end of the year. Now, transculturation is the two-way flow of culture ideas between the dominant culture and the less dominant culture. And I think it's safe to argue that this happens all the time. Again, think of the food we eat. That's transculturation. Tex-Mex. Well, that's syncretism, but that's transculturation. Look at this sign. Complete auto service, foreign and domestic, hablamos español. Inviting both cultures. Bilingual signs or transculturation. What's the word for food? Restaurants that do fusion dining is transculturation. No doubt about it. Brewery Bavana in Raleigh is a brewery, 2021. They make excellent dumplings and bao and Asian pot stickers. Excellent. But not with traditional Asian ingredients. And that's the fusion part. They're also a bookstore and a flower store. So it's a florist. So it's a really eclectic kind of place. But they take the Asian idea of a dumpling and stuff it with different stuff, or go to different parts of Asia and get in for things like bao. And that's us benefiting from transculturation. All right, moving on. Syncretism, which is what I just alluded when I was talking about Tex-Mex or snowboarding or Thai food, actually. Those are syncretism. Excuse me, my son. He wants notes. All right. Syncretism is a combination of different cultural concepts into one. Like I said, snowboarding is syncretism. What is it? What's it a combination of? Surfing, skiing. Back in the old days when I don't know how the bindings are now, but you were rooted on your snowboard. The one time I went snowboarding, the most push-ups I've ever done in my life. That's also the sorest I've ever been in my life. No joy. I don't ski. If I'm going to the mountains, give me a fire and a book and a hot chocolate. Oh, or maybe I'll ride a snowmobile, but I'm not skiing. All right. What's an example of syncretism in our culture today? Again, provide some examples. Tex-Mex is one. Different forms of music are a blend of different cultures. Fashion, those are the easiest ones to think of. I'm sure there are others. Architecture is a combination of different places. So if you were to walk around Raleigh, you would see it. And you could probably walk around your house and see it too. So if you have the time, look around. All right. Now, how do we interpret culture? How do we sit there and figure out and decide what are those cultural traits? What is that complex? Things of that sort. How do we do this? Anybody? All right. Well, one way of doing it is ethnocentristically. Remember, ism is belief, centra is center. It's the idea that I am the center of the universe and all other cultures revolve around me. My way is the only way. My way is the best way. If you don't do it my way, you're wrong. That's ethnocentrism. My way is best. Self, 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 self. All right. Or country, or culture, or religion, or yeah, those things. The practice of judging another culture by our standards. So when you look at a culture and you go, oh my gosh, they're only making $2 an hour, that's horrible. In America, that's horrible. In most of the world, that's horrible. But where they live, that might be more money than they've ever seen before. So it kind of matters. Um, there are parts of our culture that I think, if I go on a limb here, might not be a bad idea to share. But I don't think it's healthy for every single culture to think that their way is the best way to have blinders on. You miss an awful lot with blinders. But that's what ethnocentrism is. This is a lovely example of ethnocentrism. What is ethnocentric about this comic? This would be so much better in class. I feel fairly certain that when we get back together again, I'm going to pull this picture up just to hear you people talk about it, just to hear what you come up with respect to where is the ethnocentrism and is the ethnocentrism one-sided? Because it's important to it's important to know when we or you or I are exhibiting ethnocentrism, but it's also important to know if your others around you are exhibiting theirs. Because if you understand that that's what they're doing, then it allows you to be a little less, for lack of a better word right now at 9:30, mad. Okay. Now, the other approach and the antithesis of ethnocentrism is cultural relativism. And it is just what you think it is. Every culture, their view of the world is relative. And everything that you see is relative to the lens with which you see it. Instead of us looking at that country going, oh my gosh, it's only $2 an hour, it would be beneficial for us to go and do a little research and examine that country and understand, oh my gosh, it is only $2 an hour. It's a shame that it's that low. But within the construct and through the eyes of that culture and of that woman, and I say women because I'll have to explain, it's a good thing. Girls who leave the farm and leave rural China and go to the city to find work don't make the best money in our eyes, and maybe not in all Chinese eyes, but it's an opportunity that they'll never have if they're stuck in the western provinces of China and they stay at the farm. So you have to remember that this is more money than they've ever seen. This is more opportunity than they've ever had. So that matters. It also helps you appreciate what you have more, and it helps develop a little more compassion for the other people. So cultural relativism is a pretty cool thing. Now, cultural relativism, and this is we're going to wrap it up here for tonight. This is a quick 30 slides. Are the dogs big or are the dogs small? It's the same dog. It's just relative. And we'll pick up with folk culture next time. Have a great night, everybody. See you soon.